All right, we want to give you an update on the hurricane situation with Milton as it gets closer to us. It's Tuesday afternoon when we're recording this and want to get straight to the experts when it comes to JSO and the response here. So we have Director Cowan, our Director of Patrol and Enforcement, and then our Chief of Special Events, Chief Burns. I know that you all have been working very, very hard with city leaders and so many people here in the community. We are going to get some big effects here. I think some people are sleeping on this storm. From what you're telling us, we need to be careful.
Yeah, our EOC does a very good job of pushing out information early. We as city leaders between law enforcement, fire rescue, emergency preparedness division, JEA, and public works, we generally meet days ahead of one of these storms coming up. They saw this one coming a few days ago, started meeting very early about it, realizing it has the capacity, it has some devastating effects to our area. Looks like it's going to have some horrific effects south of us, and our prayers go out to everybody in that area. But what we're doing is planning here for tropical storm force winds, sustained tropical storm force winds, and possibly gusts to hurricane strength at the coastal areas and areas along the river and intercoastal. So with that, obviously you have power outages, you have flooding, streets are going to be closed, intersections are going to have to be controlled. JSO is going to be assisting with swift water rescue with JFRD. We assist with emergency road access teams. We're staffing shelters. We're providing extra security for hotels and gas stations because the large influx of people coming up from the affected areas are coming to evacuate. So this is a big deal. This is not something to sleep on. I think everybody here realizes that now. We're starting to see droves of people coming up from the Tampa and Orlando area that are coming here for refuge. With that being said, we're still going to have some effects here, especially with the wind and the flooding, and we're taking that into account now as we put our plan together, how we're going to respond to it.
And Director Cowan, I know that you are really mobilizing these resources to make sure that we have enough JSO officers to go alongside the JEA crews, the JFRD crews, the City of Jacksonville crews. Tell me about the resources that people are going to see throughout this storm.
Yeah, certainly we have, not only do we do it here in town, that's our first priority, but we also have teams that go to assist in other areas of the state when necessary. So we certainly have enough resources that we can help staff the shelters, help with road closures, help with, as you mentioned, the ERAD teams. And we have a significant amount of depth that we can go into our agency. As you know, we're about 1,700 plus strong agency, and when something like this happens, this is one of our main focuses. Obviously, we always have to take care of calls for service and patrol, but this becomes the next big thing that we're doing, and we're here to do that.
I know some of the big questions that you get are about road closures and bridge closures.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure, I'll tell you this, and then I'll let Chief Burns follow up on that. But the number one thing you can do when we get asked about those bridge closures is don't be out during those peak storm hours, right? So that alleviates even the concern of being on the bridges. And I know that's not always possible. So we monitor the bridges, and I'll let Chief Burns talk a little bit about that on some of the things that we can do.
Yes, sir, Director. So we monitor the wind speeds at all the bridges through the Florida Department of Transportation. They have a system that we can monitor and check the wind speeds. So don't have to have a police officer out there with a wind meter. Generally, once they're sustained over 40 miles an hour for a minute, and that's bridge to bridge. That's not in general. We generally shut the bridge off and open it back up as soon as we can. As the Director and I were talking, there is a point where speeds get to a certain point where I don't have a police officer out there. It's not safe. They shouldn't be out there anyways. We message out, do not get on the roads, as Director Cowan said. Don't be out of your house if you don't have to, and surely don't be on the roads, because at some point the winds may get too high. Put a first responder out there. It's not going to be smart, and we just have to leave it to people to use good judgment not to be out traveling.
But if I may, again, going back to the original point, find where you're going to shelter, and then shelter in place, right? And then that alleviates the need to be out on the roads and going over the bridges. That helps us.
Great point.
And we know that as of the time of recording this video, Mayor Donna Deegan said no evacuation orders in Duval County, but if you are in a low-lying area, if you're in a flood-prone area, if you're maybe in a mobile home area, or if you got some trees that are a little too close to your home, that's dangerous, and you should look to see if you maybe have a relative you can stay with.
Yes, sir.
Or we have the shelters. Right now there are 6. There's the potential for 5 more throughout the city of Jacksonville and the beaches areas.
Yes, sir.
So what are some of the things you should be looking at if you're right on the fence? Let's be frank, nobody wants to go to a shelter. It's not necessarily going to have the comforts of home, but if it saves your life, it's worth it.
As the director said, know where you need a shelter at. If it's your house, that's fine. If you need to go to a shelter, then that's great. The city's offering services. Every hotel, if I understand, anywhere around here is booked up already. We were discussing that this morning because people are coming from Tampa, coming up here to shelter. So if you live in an area, if you live in a mobile home, if you live in an area that's, say, flooded during Irma just a few years ago, those are things you need to consider to take the services the city offers and take refuge in a shelter, at least while the storm is coming through.
So right now, is it safe to say we could expect conditions similar to Hurricane Irma?
Flood-wise, we could, because there's an astronomical, we call it a king tide, October 15th to the 20th is supposed to be the highest tides of the year here in St. John's. As we're inching that way within a week out, with a hurricane, with the rain that's coming, and with the astronomical tides that we're experiencing, we could experience Irma-type flooding if we get a massive amount of rainfall. There's a possibility we get 10 inches of rain in a quick amount of time.
Yeah.
That I would look and expect urban and rural flash flooding if that's the case. So if you live in an area that's flooded before, it could very easily flood again.
All right. So I think the moral of the story here is hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and listen to the warnings
Yes, sir.
from the mayor, from the sheriff's office, from the city of Jacksonville, from Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, and that's the best way to stay safe during the storm.
Yes, sir.
Director, Chief, thank you so much, and I know that we've got
Appreciate it.
long hours ahead, so we're just getting started here.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks.